Hi, I'm Amy Romeo, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make this really cute gingerbread house clutch purse using faux leather, heat transfer vinyl, and a Cricut. I'll have a link to the SVG file for you if you want to craft along with me. And I'll be making this project with my Cricut Maker today, but you could use any of the Maker or Explore machines or the Cricut Joy Xtra for this project. So the base of the purse is faux leather, and I'm going to leave a link to the faux leather that I prefer, my favorite gingerbread brown. It's on Amazon, and it's available in two widths, a 12-inch width and an 8-inch width, and this pattern will fit on either one. This is nice and smooth, and it's going to be great for when we press our heat transfer vinyl on. Now I'm using some Caesar Easy Weed in white, and then I'm using some Caesar Glitter heat transfer vinyl in red, but you can use whatever you'd like. Now I'm going to press the heat transfer vinyl onto the faux leather using an Easy Press Mini, and you'll want a heat pressing pad of some kind and a cover sheet. This is a Teflon sheet. I'll be cutting my faux leather using a purple mat, and then the heat transfer vinyl using a green mat. I'm also going to use some blue painter's tape, a weeding tool, and some small curved scissors. Now some other elements of this little project, we are going to be applying some cam snaps for a closure. These are size 20 cam snaps, and I like the box on Amazon that also comes with the pliers. And then we also need some 6mm by 6mm rivets. These come in different metal finishes. This is an antique bronze, and they also come with some little tools that you'll use just with a regular hammer from your garage. Okay, so let's go ahead and hop into Cricut Design Space. We will talk about the pattern, get our mats cut out, and I'll show you how to assemble this really cute little clutch. Starting with a blank canvas in Cricut Design Space, you'll click on Upload and then Upload Image, and you'll browse to where the unzipped SVG file for this project is saved on your device. Click on it to select it and then click Open. You'll see a preview of the project, click Continue, and then Upload. So the project is on our canvas, and the first thing I want to do is ungroup all of the elements so that I can just show you a few things. So everything you see in that brown is going to cut from that gingerbread colored heat transfer vinyl, and then the different white and red elements are your heat transfer vinyl. And what I've done is I've made them all separate elements so that you don't waste a lot of heat transfer vinyl when you're cutting these, and also so that if you wanted to, you could cut the roof tiles from a glitter heat transfer vinyl, for example, and then this smaller area from regular easy weed or a very easy to weed vinyl. The little bow and the peppermint, those are all going to cut separately as well, and we'll just place them down one at a time. So we don't need to make any changes to the size of the pattern. We'll just click the Make It button. We're cutting our materials on a mat. And the first thing we want to do is toggle the mirror button on for each of our mats because faux leather and heat transfer vinyl cut in reverse. So for the little bow and peppermint area here, I'm just going to drag these apart from the edge of the mat just a little bit and from each other. That makes it easier when we're pressing. Now for our brown gingerbread mat, how you lay this out really depends on the size of the faux leather you have. So for example, if you only have that 8-inch wide roll, then I'm going to move this way off to the side, and you'll be able to cut this piece from that 8-inch roll if you roll it down this way. And then this piece you would need to use those 3 little dots and move it to another mat to cut that part. Now if you're using the 12-inch wide piece, then you can just nestle these right next to each other and they will cut on the same mat. Now here for the heat transfer vinyl white mats, I'm just going to organize these a little bit, give myself a little bit of space from each one of them, but I'm going to cut all of these from just regular white heat transfer vinyl. Okay, so I'll go ahead, click back on my faux leather mat, click Continue. The faux leather mat will cut using the faux leather paper thin setting. That's what I use and recommend. I like to click on faux leather paper thin and then more pressure. Here's a reminder, we're just using the regular fine point blade. And then for your heat transfer vinyl mats, you'll use the manufacturer's recommended cut setting for the type and brand of heat transfer vinyl that you are using. So let's go ahead, hop back over to my overhead camera. We'll get our mats cut out, and then we'll start putting together our little purse. So I've got my 12-inch piece of faux leather here. I'm just going to place this down on my purple strong grip mat, and I'm going to press it down really well with my fingers, and then I'm going to tape it down on all sides. And taping it down is going to help keep this faux leather down on the mat while the blade is cutting through. This blue painter's tape is great because it won't leave a residue on your faux leather or on your mat, and these pieces can be peeled up and reused quite a few times before you need to throw them away. So I already have my faux leather paper thin cut setting with more pressure already set on the machine, so I'm just going to load the mat and begin the cut. So my faux leather mat has cut one time, and you can see that my faux leather is lifting because I was at the very end of the smallest part of that roll, that 12-inch long roll, and it was very curled up. So when I put it on my mat, it wants to curl up again. Yours will not curl up like this, but I'm able to see that my faux leather cut out nicely, which is what I always recommend you do. So I suggest you use a weeding tool, and you would just lift up the edge of your faux leather and make sure that the cut went all the way through. If it didn't, you can press the cut button again, and it will repeat the cut as many times as you want to do that, as long as you haven't unloaded your mat. But this one obviously cut well, so I'm going to remove my mat and remove my shapes. Now, if you have any little parts that are stuck just a little bit like that, then you can use your detail scissors just to trim that away. Now, you'll notice here with the pattern, there are a lot of little holes that cut. So we have 2 holes here at the top where the scalloping is, and I like to use my sharp weeding tool and just kind of press those open. They don't have to be perfect because those are just for the cam snaps, and they'll be covered by the cam snaps. So you just want to know where they are. You don't necessarily need to make them perfect. Now here we also have a hole on the side that is going to be for our little wristlet purse, our little wristlet handle. And then we've got little holes all down the side here. So just take a minute, poke through all those holes with your sharp weeding tool. And then we've got holes down the back too. So if you want to take a look at the pattern in Design Space, find all of those little holes and just poke them through. So I wanted to mention, I didn't put any heat transfer vinyl on the back of my faux leather here just to save some time. But if you wanted to put a really thin heat transfer vinyl, if you wanted to press it all over the back of your faux leather before you run your cut, then the shape would cut out with heat transfer vinyl inside. That adds a pop of color, and it just makes your little purse look a little more finished. Now, if you wanted to use a thicker heat transfer vinyl on the inside, then what I suggest for that is in Design Space, you make a copy of this shape and you make a copy of this shape. You change them both to a red color, for example. You cut those out of heat transfer vinyl, and then you would press that cut layer onto the inside of your cut faux leather, and that way you'll have something thicker on the inside. So I'm going to show you just with this though. Let me remove my little handle here. Now I'm going to hop back into Design Space, and I'm going to cut out the 2 other heat transfer vinyl mats and weed away all of the excess. Then we will come back together and I will show you the next steps for putting together this project. Okay, so I finished cutting and weeding all of my heat transfer vinyl layers. For the little bows and the peppermint, just cut those shapes apart, and everything else should be something you can place individually. So I put this piece of brown faux leather underneath something heavy to get it to flatten out just a little bit. Again, you can see how tightly it was rolled, and that's why it curled a little bit when I cut it, but that's okay. So I've got my heat pressing pad. I have my Easy Press Mini set to the low setting, which is the first green line. If you're using a regular Easy Press or regular heat press, I would set it to 265 degrees Fahrenheit to press the heat transfer vinyl onto the faux leather. So you'll also want a cover sheet of some kind. I like to use a Teflon sheet, and this is one I've trimmed smaller, which is good for pressing small areas. So I'll probably use that. And what I'm going to do is just start by pressing these little areas. So here we've got our little sort of rounded layers here, and we're going to line up these holes with the holes that are in our faux leather. So you should have gone through, poked through those little holes, and you're just going to line those up with the heat transfer vinyl layer on top. And then we're going to cover with a cover sheet and press. And we're going to press for about 10 seconds of nice even pressure over all of this heat transfer vinyl. So then what I'm going to do is just very slowly peel away this clear carrier sheet. Now, if when I'm peeling the vinyl lifts up, then you can just place it right back down and press some more. But this looks pretty good. So I'll do that on both sides. There's a little lifting there, so I'm going to cover and press just without that clear carrier sheet. This heat pressing is also going to help flatten out the curls in my faux leather. So the next layer that I want you to do is the little roof line. And when you are weeding this, I want to make sure that you get this little dot in the roof line and all these roof tiles. And that is going to match up to a dot that is on our faux leather base. So let me show you. That's the one where our little wristlet strap is going to connect to. So I'm going to take my roof line here, match it up to the scallops down here at the bottom. If you have any little pieces of heat transfer vinyl stuck on the back here, just take those off. So I'm going to match up my roof line at the bottom, and when I do that, that little hole should line up as well, and it does, so that's perfect. There we go. Let's see, I want to move it a little bit. Just take your time with this. There we go. Again, I'll cover and press. So I'm just letting this cool just a little bit for about a minute, and that's going to make it easier for me to peel this clear carrier sheet off of this delicate little heat transfer vinyl layer. Again, go slow with this because you can always place this clear carrier sheet right back down and press some more. I'm seeing a little lifting down here, so I'm going to replace that and press. So now that the clear carrier sheet is removed, I'm just going to cover and press again for about 5 seconds all over. And now we're ready to place the little front of the gingerbread house. And let me show you how we're going to figure out where to place this. So the way our little clutch purse is going to work is we have the scalloped roof at the top here. This bottom part is going to come up just like that. This line here is going to line up where these fold over, and our rivets are going to go through right there. So that means that our little bottom of our house here, the little door frame, the snow, all of that is going to be right down here at the bottom. So I'm just going to kind of hold this in place again so that this top line is lined up with these two flaps. Then I'm going to just take my little snow line here and kind of put this down at the bottom. Look at it from above, make sure it looks good. The little roof line is going to come down like that. And then hold this in place. We'll flip it over like that. Make sure it's lined up. I think that one's a little crooked. So adjust as needed. And then we're going to cover and press. Again, this is very warm, and I'm going to let this cool before I try and peel the clear carrier sheet. So once you have the little windows and the door frame in place, now you can go through and just apply these little glitter heat transfer vinyl elements as little details. Then when all of your clear carrier sheets are removed, I'm going to place this underneath my heat pressing pad just to let it cool nice and flat. Then I'm going to get ready to show you how to do the cam snaps and the rivets. So next we're ready to do our rivets and our cam snaps. But before we get started on that, I'm just going through and using my sharp weeding tool and just poking through all those holes again, because when we press the faux leather, pressing tends to close those holes up a little bit. So just go through, find all of your holes, and just press those through again. You'll be happy you did that when you're ready to attach your rivets and your cam snaps. Okay, so we're going to use rivets on these sides to assemble the little clutch, but before we do that, we're going to apply our cam snaps, because once we attach the rivets and fold up the little clutch, it'll be hard to get into these areas to do the cam snaps. So let's talk about cam snaps. I use them a lot in my projects, and you'll often see me use one of these boxes from Amazon. These are size 20 plastic cam snaps, and this box comes with a pair of pliers, but if yours doesn't, you'll need to get a pair of cam snap pliers. And mine came with a little piece of paper that has some instructions on it, so I'll include this in your download folder. For every cam snap, we need 4 elements from this little box. So you'll need a cap, a stud that has little bumps on it, a socket, and another cap. So since this project has 2 cam snaps, I've gone through my box and I've found those elements, and I've just lined them up here on my work surface, one for each snap. Okay, so again, let's remind ourselves of how we're going to put this together. So this little part folds up and this part folds down, and this little roof here has snaps on it, and it's going to snap down under here on the front of the little purse. So that means that on the outside, the pretty roof part, we want to have a pretty cap so that it looks decorative from the outside of our little purse. So I'm just going to come over here and get my 2 caps, place those on like that. And then on the underside, I'm going to put that first piece called the stud. And the stud, as I said, on the back, it has little bumps. So we're going to take the bumps and put the bumps down on the faux leather. And now I'm just holding this with my finger. So the cap is on the outside and the stud is on the inside. Now the cam snap pliers have a large black piece, and the black piece always goes over the cap. So you might need to turn these in your hand to get them going in the right direction. So I want the black piece to go over the cap. Again, I'm holding these 2 parts between my fingers so they don't move, and I'm just sliding over the black part of the pliers. And when I get it in position, then the cap will go inside this black piece and you won't really be able to see it anymore. That's how you know it's in the right position. And when that's in the right position, then this is in the right position. And all we need to do is squeeze. So I'll just repeat that on the other side here on the flap. Again, getting that stud with the small bumps on the back, lining up the black piece, and squeezing. So if this part folds up and then down, then on this side we need to have the little socket pieces. So the socket piece needs to face up so that this can snap into it. And that means on the inside is where the cap will be. So I'm going to take these bottom caps and go from the inside of the little purse so the post comes out. I'll take the socket piece, slide that on. Again, I'm holding it with my fingers. The black piece goes over the cap. And squeeze. And then same thing for the other side. Okay, perfect. So now we have our little snaps in place for the little clutch. So the last thing that we need to do is attach the little rivets. And the way the rivets are going to work is these are 6mm by 6mm rivets, and they come in different metal finishes. And the first 6mm is the size of the cap, so the size of that little circle. And the second 6mm is the size of the post. And it's important that you don't get the post too long, because then when you hammer it down, it won't smush down right, it'll bend. So these are 6mm for the cap and 6mm for the post. And the way these little sides work is we are going to have the post come up through the bottom here. So I'm going to start down here at the bottom. It's always easier to do that. I'm going to take the little rivet and I'm going to take the post and push it through one of these bottom holes. Just like that. So the flat part is on the back, the post is coming up through the front. I'm going to do that for all 4 on this side. Then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Okay, so now all of my 6mm by 6mm rivets are poking up through the front. So 4 on this side and 4 on this side. I'm going to place my little clutch down. Try to keep this nice and flat, and then we're going to fold these little ends over and just pop the little pre-cut hole onto the post that's sticking up. I'll lift it up in just a second and show you. Once I get all 4 of these on, that's what it should look like. All those posts are sticking up. And then what you want to do is take the caps. So the cap is just the other end. You're going to take that little cap and pop it on the post that's sticking up. Just like that. So do that for this whole side and then repeat on this side. Okay, so all of our little rivets are in place, but we want to hammer them down so they go flush with the 2 layers of faux leather. So the way we do that is by taking the little piece called the strike plate. I'm just going to put this inside the little purse all the way down here so it's underneath this first rivet. Put this on my work surface, and then I'm going to take the little hammering part that comes with these. Usually one end is flat. Yours might be metal, but mine is plastic. We've got a flat end and a curved end. So the curved end is going to go over the rivet, and then we're going to take a regular hammer and hammer maybe 5 to 8 times. And what that does is it secures that cute little flap down. Let me see if you can see the difference between the two. See how this one is very lifted up, and this is the one I just hammered down. So it really pulls that cute little detail down flat, and it makes these almost flush with the faux leather. So I'm just going to go through and hammer all of these down on both sides of the front of the purse. And that's it. All those little rivets are down. Isn't that cute? So there's just one last rivet that we want to attach, and that's on the back through that little hole on the roof. So again, I'm just going to take the rivet post. I'm going to go from inside the little purse, push the post up, and then you're going to thread on your little wristlet piece if you'd like. Kind of pop that on. Pop on the other side. Now this, you want to make sure you kind of get it in the position that you want it to be. You might want it to be straight out. You might want it to be up a little bit, because once we put the cap on and we hammer it down, it's not going to be very movable. So again, we'll just put our cap, and then I'm just going to hammer that one down as well. So here's a look at our completed little clutch with our little wrist strap here with our snaps. You can open this up and put some things inside, and I think it's really cute for the holidays. I hope you like this project and you're going to make one of these yourself. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.